Hello. I'm so pleased to be able to give a little bit of an insight for your society into some of the ideas and thoughts behind burial, funerals, the whole process of not being alive anymore as far as Judaism is concerned. Unless, of course, like some Jews, you believe that there is a life after this life, as is often said in classrooms, that this is a comma, not a full stop. I'm Gerry Cohen. I've been involved in NATRE, the National Association for Teachers of RE, for quite a few years. I work with the Barnet Multi-Faith Forum. I've been involved in a lot of interfaith work, and I teach religious studies and philosophy and ethics in a large secondary school not far from North London. And other than that, I go to synagogue. I practice as best as I can my Jewish faith in the way that suits me, I hope, and it suits God. And I have conversations with people from all kinds of walks of life. I pick the guitar up from time to time. I sing. I help other people celebrate. And in the words of the one of the rabbis that might not be so familiar to many Jewish people, a man called Jesus, he said we should rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. In other words, suit the action to the time, which actually is Shakespeare's words. So I just wonder, where do we begin? I suppose we begin at the end. A person dies. Hopefully what happens is that they die surrounded by friends and loved ones, which is the usual bit of blurb that goes into a tweet nowadays, or an X, I should say, or a notice that goes into the newspapers that so-and-so was surrounded by his friends and loved ones. Well, that's very much an important thing for Judaism. And we find it in the Hebrew scriptures so often that people of renown passed away with their children, with their wife or their husband close by, with the descendants. Judaism talks about going from one generation to another, dor vador. And it's up to the next generation to take care of the previous generation. So one of the things that would typically happen, first of all, if we hear of somebody's passing, there's a couple of things that we might do very traditionally. One is to take a knife or indeed find a seam on our coat and tear it, rip it, so that what is worn shows a passing away, a removal of that which was good and perfect. And then we say a simple statement, and it goes back to the earliest written book that we can find in the Hebrew Bible. And that's not Genesis, it's the book of Job, who basically went through a really hard time. And when things were really bad, he said, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, will not the eternal judge of the earth judge rightly? In other words, when you hear bad news, your attitude should be, seriously, does God make mistakes? No, he doesn't. So if we hear of the passing of someone we love, or the passing of someone we perhaps don't love, we say, this is up to God. Our times are in his hands. When a person has passed away, as quickly as possible, they should be looked after. So in the sense of looking after, the body is taken care of by washing. If it is a man, then they are wrapped in their presh or their talit, except for the corners of the fringes, the knots at the ends, because they are no longer able to take part in prayer services. So those reminders of the importance of prayer are removed. Where possible, the body should not be left alone. Somebody should be with them. In fact, it's a mitzvah, it's a blessing, it's a good thing to sit with the deceased. That's why it's been such a difficulty, such a tragedy when people die away from families and friends, away from loved ones, as in the case, very sadly, of war, of turmoil, when you can't get to the body straight away. But wherever possible, the body would be taken to be cared for, and the burial service is very, very simple. There shouldn't be a great ornate coffin. It should be as simple as it can be. Some families say, yes, you can bring flowers, you can give flowers, or you can make a donation. Lots of Jewish people say, don't worry about that because the money can be better spent in other ways. But I remember for my own father's passing, there was a huge number of flowers over the coffin. I didn't even realize the coffin was there at the time until it was taken to be moved. And I was just so shocked. That was my kind of first involvement, if you like, in death. So a person is taken to be buried. Judaism does permit cremation, but in the Orthodox tradition, wherever possible, a burial, and a simple burial. And as the Torah tells us, that we came from dust and we return to dust. So the body is buried in a very simple way. One of the prayers that is prayed is the Shamar. The Shamar, which is said where possible on waking and on going to bed, but also nearest to the point of one's death as possible. The Shamar simply says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God." In other words, it's a reminder that the love of God and the practice of your faith should be part of your whole life. Of course, there are many Jewish people who die without a particular faith in God. They have a secular Judaism, and whilst that may be that for them they don't particularly have, as it were, a need, it's often a comfort for other people, for other family members, and for friends perhaps, to be reminded of the uniqueness of the God of Israel. The God of Israel is often referred to as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. In that way, there's a remembrance of the generations that go through. Abraham is the beginning point of the Hebrew people. Isaac continues that faith, and then Jacob, of course, who has 12 children who become the 12 tribes of Israel, who become the nation of Israel, etc., etc. And in each person's family life, they refer to the God of their fathers. That's very important, I think, because it takes, again, this idea of generation to generation. When a person dies in a traditional family situation, what will happen? There are 7 days of mourning on low stools, the covering of mirrors. You don't put a load of makeup on, you don't dress in finery, you don't have extravagant meals, you don't listen to music. There's all sorts of things that you wouldn't do. One thing also that you wouldn't do is you wouldn't sit around cooking. You wouldn't get on with those sort of things. The chores that are part of your everyday life take a side step. So what happens? Well, fortunately, people come in to help. And it's it's said to be a great blessing, a mitzvah, an encouragement to others to come over and say, I'll do your washing. I'll cook some meals for you. I'll crazy things like I'll cut the grass. I'll look after, I'll walk the dog, you know. things so that you can spend time, yeah, that you might need um, to begin the mourning and recovery process. You also would light a candle. Candles very important in Judaism. They talk about the soul. They talk about the life spark that's within, and they talk about the prayer that goes to heaven. So there would be a candle, maybe like this. You can see it's quite thick, and this, once it's lit, would last for over 25 hours. Some have a much longer candle, which actually burns for 7 days. Um, the idea behind this is simply that you continue the life and the remembrance over the days. For 30 days, you mourn and you take your time. You don't go to all these places of adventure and fun and celebration that you might otherwise do. You might have to turn down going to a wedding. You might have to turn down going out to the cinema with your friends. After 12 months, uh, from the burial, well, usually about 11, a stone is set up as a headstone. And that marks the end of that major time of mourning. And so the grave is marked, and the grave is a place that you can go to. When a Jewish person goes to a graveside, and you may have noticed that in the film Schindler's List, right at the end, they have a scene when the people, the actors and cast, they visit the grave of Oscar Schindler in Jerusalem. Um, and what they do is they take a stone and they place it on the grave. The tradition is that the more stones are there, the more people have visited and the more the person is remembered. In Ecclesiastes it says there's a time to gather stones, there's a time to cast away stones. Mourning should not be morose. It should be a thankfulness. And there's a phrase that we often say. In Hebrew, it's translated into, may you live a long life. Another phrase that is given is this. It's very simple. May his or her memory be for a blessing for you. In other words, whenever you remember this person who's passed away, may you have good memories. May that encourage you. May that strengthen you. And may that help you in your process from this generation into the next generation. Life is part of death. Death is part of life. In Judaism, whether we're secular, whether we're religious, whether we're orthodox, whether we're whatever we call ourselves, the most important thing that we find when we speak of death, it's something that takes place for each of us. We hope that it will take place calmly and quietly, and if not, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, may the God of the earth do right. I know that's just a small snapshot for you, and I hope it's helpful. If you wish to ask more questions, if you wish to find out more, don't hesitate to email me. Let me know. And thank you so much again for this opportunity. And may I wish you shalom, well-being, wholeness. Thank you.